Hey guys, this is John, and I'm playing alakhine101 in the 15-minute pool on ICC. This is a frequent opponent in the pool. This is the, I think, let's say, fourth time we played. Yeah, I think it's the fourth time we played. I'll play a Sicilian against them this time around. So clock management is going to be huge in this game because I think every time I played alakhine101, I've had trouble on the clock. Like, it happens every single time. Except for maybe the game that I beat him. I think we're 1-1-1. So he beat me the first time, I beat him the second time. Our last game was a draw. And the last game we played, I thought I played pretty well. I just didn't convert down the stretch. It was a pretty interesting game, Scandinavian. So this time I'm playing the Kan Sicilian. And watch for him to do something a little unusual. I just have this feeling like he's going to do something weird in the opening because he seems to do it every time. So yeah, the first time we played, it was like weird, like English, and then the second time was actually pretty normal. It was a Queen's Gambit accepted, and last time he did something pretty unusual against the Scandinavian, involving an early Queen F3. Also, watch for him to take some time in the opening and then speed up. He kind of that's actually like a pretty good trick to use. Like if you're confident in the opening, but you don't want to like give away to your opponent that you are, you'll see some people spend some time on the initial moves and kind of lull you into like a false sense of security, like, okay, like we're going to play this type of game. And then they'll start speeding up. They'll start like whipping off moves after that. I don't recommend you do that trick, but it's something I've seen people employ. Okay, so this is all normal so far. I'll just play d6. And if white wants to, they can play queen g4. They can take this opportunity to attack the g pawn and try to make me play g6. Just going to check on alakhine101 stats. Peak rating of 2319. 2,500 games played. Yep, and they do play queen g4. Okay, I'll play g6. So just guard against the threat. Now, if they drop their queen back, like queen e2, I have to time it correctly when I will play knight f6. Because like if I play knight f6 now, bishop h6 is possible, preventing me from castling. So for the moment, I want to delay that move. I actually really want to see if they'll play f4. Because if they do that, I might have the all clear to play knight f6. Okay, play c4. So now we could be headed for some sort of bind position. Now, do I want to play the knight to c6 or d7 in this bind? I mean, d7 would be standard, but there's something to be said for like a4, a5 in the middle game. Now, I'm going to do knight d7, though, all the same. You'll see how they play it, because I don't think a4 is too bad for us right now. There's actually some positions where you can even meet a4 with knight e5 and attack their bishop. Okay, knight c3. Again, if knight gf6, bishop h6 can be played. So let's play b6. I just wonder if they'll go a4, a5 and try to make that idea work. Nope, f4. Okay. So now is typically where you want to play knight f6. So if I play knight f6 and they go e5, am I concerned? D takes e5, f takes e5, queen takes e5. Maybe queen f3 then? Hitting my rook. I could wait on it a move. I could play bishop b7 first if I want. Maybe I should do that. Yeah, let's play it that way. Just in case this rook on a8 becomes loose. I don't think he can really favorably play e5 now with my knight not on f6. And if f5, we might do something that I did in a recent blitz game, which is g takes f5, e takes f5, e5. It'd be better if my knight was on f6 to do this plan, but it might work here too. Plays bishop e3, okay. Yeah, let's continue with this move. It's not out of the question for black to sometimes play h5 and try to go knight g4 in this opening. Rook c1, x-raying my queen. Rook c8 comes to mind. I could castle, but that does invite f5. Again, h5 is also possible. Maybe h5 is the best move. It stops him from playing g4, and also I can hope to get my knight here, as I was saying. It's an interesting move, too. Let's try it. I'll try to use some reverse psychology on him, because I know that he kind of thrives in messy positions. And I don't know, maybe I'll try to get him in one. Attack his king. King h1, played quickly. Okay, so if I play h4, that move seems to invite h4. Is this idea of knight g4, then bishop g1? Because I kind of want to go for h4 now instead of knight g4. Yeah, let's play that way. Now, if this e-pawn ever moves, my bishop will be shooting right at their pawn on g2. I mean, I might even play h3 as a sacrifice, simply to open this long diagonal leading towards their king. Wow, and knight d5. Okay, this is what I was talking about. Stuff like this. So, I mean, this is a standard sacrifice on the Sicilian, the move knight d5. In this position, I don't know if it's good. I mean, my first instincts say, no, it's not good. So if I take, he takes with the c-pawn. I mean, I'm definitely going to take, because no other move is good. Like, queen d8, at the very least, he could take my bishop on e7. I think he just loves to have the initiative. And he's maybe not so comfortable when the opponent is taking the initiative. All right, so I can retreat my queen or play knight c5, either one. If I retreat the queen, probably queen d8 is the better move. Stay closer to my king. Now, in that case, what's he going to do to hurt me? If knight c5, I think knight d4 will be the answer, trying to play b4. So knight c5, knight d4, maybe queen d7 then, though. Then I'm attacking the bishop on d3 and the pawn on e4. I mean, that looks pretty decent, actually. Wonder if knight c5, he can do anything else. Knight c5, e5. Knight takes d5, e takes d6. That doesn't seem like it's going to be enough. So looking between queen d8 and knight c5 right here, those are the two main moves. Okay, let's go with knight c5. If bishop d4, maybe rook h5. So that this knight is not pinned. I think having the rook on the 5th rank could assist in the defense. Because he wants to open lines, like no question. He's just sacrificed a piece for only a pawn. He needs to open lines and try to get at my king. Explode the center. He does play knight d4. So I was thinking queen d7, just get out of the way. Because b4 is a threat now. So yeah, let's sidestep. Nice that my pawn controls b5, so there's no bishop b5. Meanwhile, I'm just threatening knight takes d3 or maybe knight takes e4. Not entirely sure about knight takes e4, but I might do it. They can bring this knight into c6. That's an annoyance in almost every variation. I feel like I have a reasonable margin of safety, though. And they do play knight c6. So if I take twice on c6, his point is that he can go b4 then, as planned. One line that's kind of tempting here is to trade the bishops, or trade the bishop for the knight, then play queen g4, offering a trade of the queens this time. Yeah, maybe that's decent. So bishop takes c6, d takes c6, queen g4. Let's say queen d2, maybe? Or queen c2, rather. Queen c2 might be better to guard e4. I can take on d3. They take with the queen. Maybe I castle then. They're going to have that c-pawn, and maybe they get b6 too, but on the whole, that does simplify the position rather nicely. I think this knight just has to go. I don't think I can really deal with it for too much longer. So let's just do this. We're going with it. I don't think he can trade queens. Trading queens seems pretty much losing. So I'm expecting queen c2 more than likely. Interestingly, after queen c2, I could throw in h3 if I want, trying to weaken their king side. Let's say queen c2, h3, g3. Maybe just knight takes d3 then. Queen takes d3, castle. I kind of like that because then our queen is nice and safe. Okay, he's going to allow the queen trade. That's unexpected. All right. So if I trade on e2 and then play knight d5, what's the point? I can take on d3 as well, but then they'll play queen takes d3. Be nice to get the queen and the light square bishop off the board, but that might be asking a little bit too much. So let's say queen takes e2, bishop takes e2. Let's say knight d5 then. Looks pretty good. Attacking that dark square bishop. Okay, let's trade. I can take on e5 too, but knight d5 might be even better. Yeah, I think I like this move just a tad more. More flexibility. So we're still up a piece for just a pawn. So if I can tame his activity and also neutralize this passed c-pawn, we should be just winning. Plays bishop d4. So if I take on e5, or what about just knight e6 right now? Knight e6 hits the dark square bishop again. Knight e6, e takes d6, knight takes d4, bishop c4. Weird position there. Must be in our favor, though. If d takes e5 to start, then bishop takes e5, hitting the rook. I can play f6 then. Might be the safer way of playing. Yeah, let's do it that way. We'll take here and then play f6 once he takes with the bishop. I don't think he'll take with the pawn because then our knight gets to settle on e6. That's a great square for our knight. You know, it's funny, after bishop takes e5, we can even castle too. It's also probably pretty good. Oh, he does take with the pawn. Yeah, you never cease to surprise me, alakhine101. Okay. Knight back to good square. Good blockading square. Hits the bishop. Defends c7. No complaints. Maybe if this bishop moves to like f2 or g1, maybe... I can't play rook h5. It's covered by the bishop. Never mind. Okay. Bishop c5 is decent. Moving a knight back to c7 is probably good. I think bishop c5, though. Do I want to allow the rook into f6? Nah, my knight's covering it. Never mind. Just trying to be mindful of my time at the same time. Okay, let's do that. If I get a knight aimed at g3, I'd be threatening knight g3 check and disaster down the h-file for him, but that's a little hard to do. I think he should be running out of compensation pretty soon, or counterplay, let's say. Tax my knight on d5. Maybe just castle now. If I castle, he can take and then take f7, however. I think the knight d to e7 might be the most secure defense right now. Rook d8 is also good. Let's just play rook d8. I've got the c-pawn under control. I can keep my king in the center. For some reason, I've had it in my head that I might be castling queenside, but I don't think that's even necessary. Yeah, we'll just defend this guy. Maybe rook cd1 he'll play. In that case, I could again move the knight to c7. Could also play knight e7 if I want. That might be better. If I play knight e7, then I can even try to get to f5 and threaten that knight g3 move I was saying. Let's pre-move this capture, just in case he takes on c5. 2.5 minute time advantage for him, but the position has to be very much in my favor. I'd say about 5 more good defensive moves, and I could just be consolidating an eventual victory pretty soon. If he doesn't generate anything within the next few moves, I'm going to take over. Because I just need a couple more moves, like king e7, for instance, to connect my rooks together. I'm very close to just having everything covered. He does take on c5. I'm expecting rook d1. So if rook cd1, well, actually, he'd probably play rook fd1. He does play rook fd1. So knight e7, do I like that move still? Or knight e3 maybe, more active. Knight e3, rook takes d8, king takes d8. He can't go rook d1, that's a big perk. But he can play rook to c3 in that position. I think I like knight e7 a little bit more. Let's do it that way. If rook d6, my plan is knight f5. To kick away this rook. Not let him settle in like, if he could go rook d6, rook takes d6, e takes d6, well, then I might have something to deal with those two pawns connected on the 6th rank. But I think I can stop that. I don't think he can really do anything wacky like b4. It's not going to work. I could always castle if need be. I still have that right to castle. Seems like he's running on fumes, trying to figure out what to do. I don't see anything for him to do either. It's tough. Because rook d6 is practically the only active move. I mean, if rook takes d8, king takes d8, all that does really is help me. Rook d1 check. I couldn't play king c7 then because of rook d7 check, forking the king and knight. But I could play, like, for instance, knight d4 I think is fine. And then if b4, king c8, let's say, if he takes c5, I take on f3. G takes f3, knight takes c6. That'll be a win for me. So again, that line was rook takes d8, king takes d8. Check. And I'll take with the king. Rook d1 check, knight d4. And then b4, trying to undermine the support of my knight. And I think I can just play king c8. It's fine. Yeah, better not to allow his rook to d7. Like if I had played king c8 instead of my last move, then his rook was getting in. Okay, so it's turning out exactly like how I said it might. King c7 is also just a good move. Don't know if it matters too much. I'll just play king c8. I think it's a bit safer. Then rook d7 is never check. If he goes bishop g4, king c7, take on c5, I can just go knight e takes c6. And again, keep the file closed. Place bishop e4 instead. I think rook h5 should be good. Attacking this pawn. Yeah, let's do that. If he takes here, I can take on c6 once again. I think that's fine. Also, knight e6 is even possible. Let's just take here. Simpler, I think. Could also have taken with the other knight. That might have been a bit more accurate. But here, if rook d6, I can take on e5. Bishop takes c6, loses to rook e1. So I think he's just losing this pawn now. Yeah. Running on empty. And we've almost equalized the time, too. Yeah, he just resigned. Okay. Well, in my mind, I think this just revolved around the knight d5 move. I mean, that's pretty much what it boils down to. It was shaping up to be a very interesting middle game, but from the looks of it, knight d5 is just a short-sighted sacrifice. I think he has to have more follow-up threats to really make it an effective knight sack in the middle. So, but like I said, I mean, I felt like he was going to do something weird like this. I think this player is kind of just like a bluffy type player, if you can be a bluffer in chess. If this guy were a poker player, he would be the dude that like waits all night to pull off a huge bluff, and he probably wouldn't mind like if he loses a lot of like other hands, but he wants to pull up that spectacular bluff and kind of like confuse his opponents to victory. Not that he's not a good player. It's just like, I mean, knight d5 is like very emblematic of his style. I think he thrives on complications, and I mean, there's guys who can get away with that style, like Mikhail Tal, for instance. He did that at a very high level. He made a lot of unsound sacrifices, but he was effective because he also did it in conjunction with a lot of good sacrifices too. More good sacrifices than unsound ones. But okay, so this is a main line of the Kan, where you kick White's knight away with this bishop c5 maneuver. That's the point of that. It's like I don't want the knight settling on d4, so I play bishop c5, force it backwards, and then move my bishop to e7. And that queen g4 move is the way to try to counter this line, trying to force black to play g6, which I did to guard the pawn. He plays his queen back to e2, and I don't want to play knight f6 too early because of the bishop h6 reply. So c4, knight d7, knight c3, b6. I did think it was interesting for white to play a4, though. Let's check on that move. This could be the problem with bringing the knight to d7. I've ran into this a few times. I remember a game I played against Georgi Kashashvili at the Marshall Chess Club a few years ago in a blitz tournament. And he, as soon as I played knight d7 in a Maraxi bind like this, coming out of a Sicilian, I believe, he hit me with a4, a5. And I had serious trouble because you'd much rather have the knight be on c6 now to help guard that square. And black doesn't really, black doesn't really want to play a5 himself because we just give away this b5 square if we do. So I think that would have been a better try. But f4, I played bishop b7, bishop e3, knight f6, rook c1. I could castle here, but h5 is also interesting. He played king h1. Not sure about that. Maybe he was already envisioning his next move. I don't know, and he didn't want his king on this diagonal. It's pretty common to play king h1. But, yeah, now this knight d5 move. He played it fairly quickly, too, which makes me think like he was probably planning it from the time that he played rook c1 a couple moves ago. So I take, and then knight c5. Yeah, queen d8 was the other move. I see the computer also likes that one. Knight c5. He played knight d4. The computer thinks that f5 or maybe knight takes c5 could be better. Knight takes c5. I probably would have taken with the b pawn. b4. Maybe he can obtain some interesting counterplay. But he needs to work with his pawns to open lines. And that's kind of what he was trying to do in the game. It just didn't quite pan out. So knight d4, now b4 is a threat, so I vacate the c-file, queen d7. Knight c6. I took here. Computer doesn't think that's strongest. It says h3 is better. Let the knight just hang out here for a second. Then if g3, now take, and take here. Aha. That way if b4, I guess I can play knight f takes e4. And I'm getting at the white king. I'm threatening discoveries against the king. That looks very precarious, though. I'm not sure I would have seen this even if I had more time. What if queen f3? Knight takes g3 is winning. Okay. H takes g3. Queen takes f3. Rook takes f3. And then knight takes d3 at the end, winning a piece. That's a pretty cold-blooded refutation, h3. And as I mentioned, this h3 move, I mean, it's connected to this bishop on b7, even though there's like all this traffic. You know, when we play h3, we're doing that because that bishop is sniping that pawn. And we're trying to open the diagonal. That would have been a good move, better than what I did. So take and then queen g4. And he played e5. That really surprised me. I thought he was going to play queen c2 to try to avoid the queen trade. And what was I thinking here? I think I was looking at h3 all the same. Something like this I was considering, and then like castling. Still better for black, but maybe he has play. I guess he can pick up the b6 pawn. Trading queens doesn't seem right. Or offering the trade of queens, I should say. Knight d5, we hit the bishop. Yep, now I took on e5. That move also surprised me. I thought he was going to take here so as not to lose momentum and attack the rook. But I was ready to play this and kick the bishop away. So f takes e6, or e5 rather, and then we get to play knight e6. And I think once this happens, it's kind of just a matter of playing accurate moves. I feel black is technically winning now because we've got too many obstacles in the way of their c-pawns, and with just their bishops, they're not going to be able to create enough threats. And just in general, white doesn't have enough threats here. Bishop c5, trying to trade. Bishop f3, rook d8. Seems okay. Take, pawn takes. Yep. I played knight e7. I think this is fine. And if rook d6 is the computer showing there, then knight f5 was my intended reply. This knight does a great job of controlling the advance of the c-pawn and also controlling c5.
Check.
So he took on d8, we took with the king.
Check.
Check. Knight d4, blocking the file. b4. Yeah, probably either move is fine, king c7 or king c8. Here I went after the e-pawn. Yeah, and take here, and he's going to be losing too much, so he just resigned. Final point being that if rook d6, just trying to get something going against here, rook takes e5, and he's going to get back rank checkmated if he takes on c6. So, okay, yeah, it's interesting playing this player. I know it seems like I'm giving him a hard time, but like when I find someone whose style is so like different from what I'm used to, this player has a unique style. It's like a challenge for me to figure out like what's the optimal way to play against them. And I think alakhine101, I'm starting to realize like a lot of what they do is just kind of bluffy, as I was saying. So I think the way to play against them is play solid and quick chess. Don't get too far behind on the clock. That's bad news. But solid chess, if you can take over the initiative, great. But be ready to recognize a potential like bluff type move of theirs and don't get intimidated by it. Like continue playing solidly throughout that. Because he probably will get some, seems like a talented attacking player. So when he gets going, he really gets going. But I feel like if I play my good, normal defensive positional game, I can come out ahead against him. Maybe not fighting fire with fire as I tried to do in the very first game. That might not be the best strategy, but this is a bit closer to what I want to do. Like I kind of made an attacking gesture and he almost just went crazy. I don't know if he didn't want to get attacked or what, but okay, enough psychoanalyzing alakhine101. Good game, sir. I will be back tomorrow with another standard game. Thank you guys for watching. Talk to you guys later. Bye.